Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel once again. If you haven't been here before, my name's Peter and I speak about all things Thailand. Okay, today I'm going to give you a whole bunch of tips, 30 of them in fact. If you haven't been to Thailand before and you're planning to go on a vacation, I'm going to give you 30 tips that will help you have a much better time when you visit the kingdom. So if you've not been here before, I've been visiting Thailand for over 3 decades. I've actually lived in Bangkok, Pattaya, Isan. I've visited many times, coming up to about 32 years now, so I have a lot of experience and I'd like to share some of these tips with you today. And if you take all this on board, then you should have a much better time when you visit Thailand. Let's not waste any time, let's get straight into it. Let's start at the beginning. Number one, my first tip for you is if you're going to Thailand, something you need to know is that ATMs, cash withdrawal points, they're very expensive in Thailand, whichever country you come from. There is a standard charge of 220 baht per transaction. Now that doesn't matter whether you're taking out 1,000 baht or 20,000 baht. As I say, it's a standard transaction of 220 baht. It's about £5.20 in UK currency. US dollars, it's about $6.29 at today's rates at time of making this video. So what I would say to you is if you take cards with you to Thailand, use them as an emergency. Take out enough cash before you go over to Thailand. Try and estimate how much you need. There's lots and lots of good videos on YouTube, estimations of how much you'll need for a daily budget, a weekly budget, whatever. I've even got those sort of videos on my channel. So just be aware that there is a charge on ATM machines when you're in Thailand. Something else I'd like to tell you about ATM machines. I did say this wasn't going to be a list of scams, but this is something quite important. When using an ATM machine in Thailand, especially in tourist areas, try to use an ATM machine that is attached to a bank. The reason for that is you'll see outside, for instance, 7-Elevens, you might get a bank of 3 or 4 different ATMs from different banks. And generally speaking, most are okay, but there have been occasions, more and more I'm hearing about, especially in Pattaya, in the tourist areas, where people have had their cards cloned, they've had withdrawals from their accounts, and it just tends to be safer if you use an ATM machine that's attached to a bank. For some reason, the confidence tricksters, or whatever you want to call them, the people who do this with the cards, they don't tend to target the ATMs over the banks. Maybe it's because of cameras, I don't know, but they tend to be safer. All right, let's go on to number 2. Now, before you visit Thailand, I would suggest, again, look at some YouTube videos. There's some very good apps in Thailand that will make life a lot more easier. Now, in the old days, there was always a problem with bartering with taxis. They didn't want to put the meters on, and it was very difficult. Sometimes it could spoil the beginning of your night. There are apps now. You've got, for taxis, for instance, you've got Grab and Bolt. Bolt tend to be slightly cheaper, but they're fantastic. You go on your smartphone, you go onto that website, you obviously you register before you go out to Thailand, and when you open up the app, it will bring up a map and they recognize where you are. You don't need to tell them where you are, and you'll just simply tell them where you want to go. And if you don't know the name of the street or the name of the mall, whatever, you can actually go onto the map and just touch the map, and that will give you an estimation of cost. You confirm it. Once you've confirmed it, it will show you where your taxi is located, and you can follow the map all the way to your building or hotel, wherever you are. So I would strongly suggest using these apps if you're planning to take taxis, because you don't have that problem of having to constantly fight with taxi drivers to put the meter on. You'll get a fixed price on the app, and that's what you'll pay. If you want to give the driver 20 baht, if he's a good driver, then that's entirely up to you. There are other apps that are also helpful. You've got Food Panda, you've got Eatigo, and you've got Uber Eats. The food apps are very good, the ones I've just mentioned. Sometimes, I've done this in myself, sometimes you'll be in your hotel, you don't feel like going out. Maybe you want to have an early dinner. If you're going out drinking in the evening, you think maybe we'll have something to eat at 4:35 rather than 7:30. You can't be bothered going out, and perhaps you don't fancy the coffee shop menu. You fancy something completely different, like a pizza, for instance. So you can go onto these food apps, you can order what you want, pay by card, and they'll deliver it to the reception of the hotel that you're staying at. You can just tell them the room number, everything. Again, you don't need to call anybody. It's all done on an app, and the hotels don't mind. You don't have to be embarrassed about it. It's not like you know, they're going to say, why we have a restaurant, why are you ordering food? Everybody does it. I've done it, and it's worth researching these apps and maybe putting them on your phone before you head out to Thailand. Number 3, So one of the biggest questions I get asked time and time again is, what do you do about a SIM card? Can you get another SIM card? Are they easy to get? Are they expensive? They're very easy to get. Every 7-Eleven will sell a SIM card, every mall. They're very, very easy. But the easiest way, if you know you're going to need your phone when you're in Thailand to phone family and friends, or you just want to check the odd email with on your phone, then the easiest way is to get the SIM card at the airport. They're used to dealing with foreigners. Their menu, if you can call it that, the prices, that's all in English with photographs. And there's 2 phone shops located in the airport. So when you come through immigration, you'll go to the carousel to get your bag. You'll pick up your bag from the carousel. As you're going out of the exit door, just before you go out, you'll see on the right there are 2 mobile phone shops next door to each other. When you go to those mobile shops, they'll need your passport, because they'll need to photocopy that, and they'll give you a kind of laminated card, and it will give you all the options. Internet might be more important than phone calls to you. Phone calls might be more important than internet. Whatever you want, you can buy it. Generally speaking, I'll pay 1,200 baht for a month. I'll get an unlimited 50 gig internet package, which is very, very good. I don't even take the SIM card out myself. I just pass the phone to them and they do everything for me. They'll give you the number. And the other thing you can do is Line is a very popular app in Thailand, more so than WhatsApp. Download Line, and anybody you want to speak to in Thailand, you can actually call. You've got an active line now. You can use Line, which is free, or WhatsApp, but you have the active line. And that's what I always do for the SIM cards. Obviously, your phone has to be unlocked as well for it to work. Straight into number 4 now. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the transportation in Bangkok. Now, it's very modern. It's very easy to get around, especially in Bangkok and other towns, actually. But in Bangkok now, they now have the overhead train system. It's all in English and Thai. There's maps on board. It's very cheap. It's air conditioned. It's very easy to get around. They've got the same thing underground, the MRT, and you've also got taxis, tuk-tuks, and motorcycle taxis. So let me just talk a little bit about the tuk-tuks and the taxis. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to get a taxi, try to use one of the apps, because the problem that foreigners face, and it's still an ongoing problem, because sometimes you do just jump in the back of a cab, is they don't want to put the meter on. You're a foreigner, they think they can make more money out of you. It's the same around the world. It's not unique to Thailand, but it's actually against the law in Thailand now for them not to put the meter on, but they tend to ignore that law, especially with foreigners. I don't think they do it with Thais. So if you get into a taxi and he won't put the meter on, just don't even negotiate with him. Just get out the taxi and get into another one. Keep doing that till one of them put on the meter. As I say, it's worse in tourist areas, not so bad out of tourist areas. Tuk-tuks, they're very, very expensive, and they have now a reputation of being kind of rip-off merchants. Now, what I would say to you about tuk-tuks is, if you haven't been to Thailand and you'd like to have a ride in a tuk-tuk, do it. It's great fun. There's nothing like riding through Bangkok at 10 o'clock at night with the wind going through your hair, the warm wind. It's a lot of fun, but you need to negotiate hard. You need to get a fixed price. Don't expect it to be cheap, and make sure the driver and you come to the same you come to an agreement with how much you're going to pay. And whatever you do, don't get talked into any other services. So if the driver says to you, I can take you on a little tour, I can take you to my friend's shop, which I'll get into later, just respectfully decline, no thank you, and just go on your journey. But as I said, I wouldn't use tuk-tuks as an everyday mode of transport, because one, the negotiating gets kind of stressful if you have to keep doing it, and 2, they're not particularly cheap. There's much better ways to get around Bangkok now. Air-conditioned taxis, air-conditioned BTS, to name just 2 of them. Number 5, I'm going to talk about booking a hotel while in Thailand. So I'm not talking about booking from your country for when you get to Thailand. So let's take a scenario. You're in Bangkok and you decide, I'd like to go to Hua Hin for a week. I'll take a taxi down there or the bus. Now, if you just go down to a hotel and you walk through the front door and you ask them, how much is the rate? How much will you charge? It won't be as cheap if you book on a hotel booking system. Now, the popular one in Thailand is Agoda. I'm not getting any commission from Agoda. I'm just telling you how it is. They are the most popular. Now, what will happen is a hotel easy numbers, 200 rooms, they'll give 30 of those rooms to Agoda to sell cheap. The reason they do it is because no hotel is always 100% occupancy, very rare. So if they fill up 170 of those rooms and they would normally have 30 rooms empty, they'll let Agoda sell those rooms cheaper, so that it's better to have 30 cheaper rooms than 30 empty rooms. But it's really confusing if you've not been there before, because I've gone into a hotel and I've said I want to book a couple of nights, and they've said, for instance, it's 1,500 baht a night, and I've said, well, look, on Agoda, here it is, I've just did this, it's 1,200, and they're like, well, we can't, you know, you can't book it for that price here in reception. And I've actually had it where I've been stood in reception with the girl booking on Agoda, she's been watching me, and I've said, well, it's gone through, yep, that's fine, we can check you in now. It's just how they do things. So use Agoda for all your bookings locally in Thailand when you're moving around. Right, okay, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about alcohol now, opening times, when you can get alcohol and when you can't, because they don't serve it 24/7 in 7-Elevens, malls, markets, that sort of place. They've tightened up the laws. They've got quite strict now. Strict's the wrong word. They've just tightened up the law a little bit. So what you should know is you can't buy alcohol in, for instance, a 7-Eleven they're all over the place. 7-Elevens are thousands of them in Thailand. You can't buy alcohol in 7-Eleven you can only buy it between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. and then you can buy it again from 5 p.m. until midnight. Out of those hours, you can't buy alcohol. And it gets kind of annoying, because if you've been out all day, it's 4 o'clock, you're just about to go into your hotel, take a shower, chill out on the bed, watch a bit of TV or something, and you think to yourself, I'll buy a couple of beers for later on, put them in my fridge. It's 4 o'clock, you go into 7-Eleven and they won't serve you. You've got to come back down at 5 o'clock, okay? Now, it's different if you're in a restaurant or a bar. They can serve. Bars are open all day in Thailand, as are restaurants. And you want to order an alcoholic drink with your meal, or you're in a bar and you're playing snooker or something, you want to drink alcohol, then that's permitted. But sales outside, takeaways, then only within those hours that I've just read out to you. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about public toilets. Not the best subject in the world, but something you need to know. Now, in public toilets in Thailand, you'll find them in the malls, bar areas, restaurants, they all have them. In the 5-star hotels and the real kind of bigger Western locations, you will find regular toilets that you'll get in your country. Now, when you go to malls and Thai restaurants, that sort of thing, you will never get, they don't supply toilet paper. And the reason for that is they have a gun with water that comes out, a jet, and you use that to clean yourself, but there's no tissue. Sometimes when you go to a mall with a public toilet, there'll be a machine on the wall, 5-10 baht, you can get a pack of tissue. But what I would say, especially for the ladies, carry this, get yourself a little pack of tissue, carry it with you, as I said, especially the ladies, in your bag, whatever. And the thing about those water guns, they leave you wet. You know, I don't like them for that reason. So it's always wise, take some paper with you. And the other thing to remember is in the mall toilets, things like that, don't attempt to flush toilet paper down the toilet, because they have narrow gauge pipes, they won't take them. And the cleaners who hang around the toilets, they'll go absolutely ballistic at you if you block their toilets. I've seen it myself. I've gone into toilets, they're blocked, there's toilet paper floating around, somebody who didn't know. But in the most of the hotels, you'll be okay. Right, let's talk about the language, the translation. So obviously, if you're going on vacation, you haven't been to Thailand before, you're not going to speak Thai. In the tourist areas, the Thais speak a reasonable level of English, not great, some better than others, but you'll find waitresses in restaurants and bars in tourist areas, they'll know enough to be able to understand you. But something that works very well, again, another app is a translation service. You can download them. There's lots of them about on the internet. They're free. The one I use is Google Translate. I do speak some Thai, quite a bit of Thai actually, but I'm not fluent in it. And I'll give you an example where I would use Google Translate. If I go into 7-Eleven, I want to buy a small bottle of milk, because if I'm in a hotel long term, they supply the kettle. I'll buy coffee and milk, and I'll be able to make coffee in my room at all hours of the day. And they tend to put sugar in a lot of food products in Thailand, including milk and lots of drinks. I I did have diabetes too. I don't any longer, but I try to stay away from sugar as much as I can. And when I go into 7-Eleven, I want to buy milk that is unsweetened, doesn't have sugar, and I'll put into Google Translate, do you have a milk product, milk that doesn't have sugar? I'll show them, and straight away they get it, and they'll show me if they have it. So it's worth, you know, use those translators, because they can get you out of some situations and they can help you in other situations. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Thai greeting now. This is number 9 on my list. Now if you've researched Thailand, you'll know the Thai greeting is a Y. They call it a Y. It's like this, the hands clasped together. Now, what you need to know is you don't need to Y every Thai you come across. Now, if you go into a restaurant or a bar, you don't need to Y. I've seen foreigners who go on holiday, they even Y the taxi driver. It's not, you don't do it. If a Thai Y's you, generally you wait until, if you're especially if you go into a restaurant, you're the customer, then they'll Y you. Now if you're in a restaurant and you leave and you pay the bill and the waitress Y's you, gives you a Y, then yeah, by all means Y her back. It's polite, it's respectful, but you don't need to Y everybody you see in Thailand, in pubs, restaurants, taxi. You know, you just don't need to do it. Something else you should be aware of, if Thais Y you, there are 3 different types of Ys. Okay, for different levels of respect. So the first one is just a standard hands together like this, and they'll slightly nod their heads. That's the first one. The second one, which is showing much more respect, is they'll go lower and they'll touch their nose with their thumbs like that. That's more respect. And there is a third one where they go even lower, and that's only used for people like monks and people that are in very high respectful positions that they would want to show the most respect for. So on the Y, give a Y back to a Thai, but don't go around Ying everybody you see, taxi drivers and everything, because it's just not done. Okay. Number 10. Now, I did say at the beginning this wasn't going to be one of those lists about 10 scams, or don't do this, or watch out for that. It isn't. It's a positive list, but there are 1 or 2 things that if you haven't been out to Thailand before, you should certainly be aware of. And one of them is showing the soles of your feet. If you show the soles of your feet to a Thai, that's like giving the finger to somebody in your country. It really is that disrespectful. You know, in your home country, you could be sitting in your restaurant, sitting in a restaurant, you cross your legs with your foot sticking out there. Somebody on that table can see the bottom of your feet, no problem. But in Thailand, it's disrespectful. Keep your feet on the floor. If you cross them, and you can cross your legs, but keep the sole of your feet pointing downwards. On the other side of the coin, in the Buddhist religion, the head is the closest thing to God. Never, ever touch a Thai person on the head. It's very disrespectful. You'll get a very angry response if you do it. A lot of times, if you're a foreigner, they'll let it slip once because they know you probably don't know, but it's better not to do it. Even if you knew a Thai, you got to know a Thai, and then suddenly they bring a little baby out, don't rub the hair of the baby, because it's just not done. Okay, so don't touch a Thai person on the head. Don't show the soles of your feet. Okay, let's move straight into number 11. Now, this is to do with cash. Now Thailand, most countries around the world, you can get by on debit cards, credit cards now, but Thailand is still very much a cash society. There are a lot of establishments that will take cards. Nearly all the hotels now, even budget hotels, you can pay by card. Bigger shops, but there is a lot of entertainment, and a lot of markets obviously don't take cards. So if you go into a Thai restaurant, for instance, it'll be cash only, and if you eat the food, they present the bill, and you haven't got any cash, then you're going to have a bit of a problem, aren't you? So always carry cash with you, not too much. Just try to calculate how much you need for that day, that evening. If you're not sure, there's plenty of videos on YouTube that give you estimations, and if you're still not sure, take out a little bit more than you think you're going to need, and keep your card as a backup, because you can always visit an ATM machine in an emergency. Yes, you'll pay that charge, but you'll have access to cash. Number 12, do not exchange cash at the airport or your hotel. It's self-explanatory, really. It's currency rates. When you leave your country, it's tempting. You'll look at the rates on the board. You'll think, I'll change up £100 now. Don't do it. And the same when you get to Bangkok, you don't need to do it. What I tend to do is I tend to change up money and take it back home to the UK with me, and then when I get there, I've got Thai baht, maybe £50 or so. But if you get there and you need some money for, say, a SIM card and a taxi, then what I would say is change £50 at the airport. That's all. And when you get into town, there's plenty of, don't change money in your hotel. There's plenty of change booths all over the place. You'll find them in malls. You'll find them in tourist areas. Look for the best rate and do it that way. Okay, something else that comes up on my live streams now and again is tipping. There's two camps on this. You'll get the people who say Thailand isn't a tipping culture, and in the other camp, which I'm a member of, you'll get the people who say it is a tipping culture. I very much think it is. How much should you tip is very much up to you, but if you don't have a clue, I would generally use a figure of about 10%. You won't go far wrong. If you're in a restaurant and the bill is 1,000 baht, you give 100 baht tip, they'll be happy with that. If you're in the bars, it's up to you guys. If you're a guy and you're going out there, or a couple, man and a woman, you go out to a bar, you have a few drinks, I'll tend to leave no less than 100 baht. It's £2.50, $3 US. It's not a lot of money, and you're helping the people out a lot because they're not paid very high salaries in the entertainment industry. If they're a waitress, you know, they're on quite low wages. Another tip I'll give you, which I mentioned in another video about go-go bars, but this is this equates to everywhere else. If you have a particular waitress serving you and you're very, very happy with the service she's provided, she's been smiling all night and she's been giving you good service, then what I would say to you is if you want to give her the tip, because she'll bring you a silver tray, coins on it and what have you, if you just do that, leave that, and that goes back, that goes in the tip box and that's shared between everybody. If you want the girl to have a tip, put the money in her hand. It's an unwritten rule. She's permitted to keep that money for herself. Right, this one again, it's probably something you've come across again. It's just the removal of shoes. Now in Thailand, people don't wear shoes in a home. They won't wear shoes in a temple, and you definitely should take shoes off. Now, if you come to a building and you're not sure whether you should take your shoes off or not, just have a look around outside. If people take their shoes off, there'll be a row of shoes outside. There might be a shoe rack, and there's always signage. And especially if it's in a tourist area, there'll be signs in Thai and English. Just be very, very aware that you will have to take your shoes off from time to time. As far as the weather goes, it's very, very hot in Thailand. I'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, just to let you know, there are 2 seasons in Thailand. Some people will debate that and say there's 3. For me, there's 2. The rainy season is between May and October. That's it, basically. I haven't got anything else to say on that. Just the two seasons. If you're planning a trip and you don't like the heat too much, then the high season tends to be from the beginning of December till the end of January, beginning of February, because it does cool down quite considerably from the hotter months in the summertime. Number 16 on my tips list here is the drinking water. You cannot drink water directly from the tap in Thailand. You will get a stomach ache, you will get sick, and I would go as far as to say don't even brush your teeth in it. If you use a glass in the room, they provide glasses and you might have a beer, you want to use that glass and you rinse it out just to get the dust out of it, then make sure you dry the glass thoroughly, because if you leave a few droplets inside and you drink it, again, you could get sick. Water is very, very cheap in Thailand. You get water from any 7-Eleven, and every mall, every outlet, every food cart on the street sells water. It's very cheap. But a little tip for you, if you go into 7-Eleven to buy water, don't buy the bottle of water directly in your eyes when you look at the fridge, because that's the most expensive. Look on the bottom one and you'll get a non-branded one, which is totally safe, and it'll be probably a third of the price of the one at eye level. That's what I do. I've never had a problem. Number 17 on my list is insect repellent. Now, you're in Southeast Asia, you're in a hot country like Thailand, you are going to get bitten by mosquitoes if you don't take adequate care. Scenario, you're out, you decide to have a meal outside in the evening, nice outdoor restaurant, there's a band playing, obviously it's not air conditioned, it's hot, it's nice, you decide to eat some local Thai food in this nice restaurant, and you get back to your hotel and your leg is covered in bites, which are very, very itchy. The restaurants do make some attempt to get rid of these mosquitoes or kill them. They have these coils that they burn, and they smoke comes off them on a slow burn, but they don't stop the mosquitoes completely. What I would say to you is buy some mosquito repellent as soon as you get there from a 7-Eleven, small bottle. Keep it with you, because you don't know when you're going to be in a situation where mosquitoes are going to attack as such. And the worst time of the day is in the evening. They tend to be out in force in the evening, and you tend to be the main buffet. So carry some insect repellent. And a tip I will give you, something that I do, if you're not living in Thailand, you're only going out for a short visit, a week, 2 weeks, a month, then take deodorant with you, the spray deodorant. It's very, very cheap in the UK, for instance. I can buy it for £1 a can. A can will last me 3 or 4 days in Thailand. They tend to sell the roll-on deodorants in the 7-Elevens. I don't like them because they're sticky. But the deodorants that you spray, if you take 2 or 3 of them to Thailand, what I do before I go out, I'll spray my arm, the top of my hand, underneath, all the exposed areas around my neck and my legs, and I never get a bite because they just, the deodorant, they'll smell it or taste it, whatever. If you put the deodorant on and use it as a repellent, that will work. I never get bites when I'm in Thailand, or you can buy the repellent. It's up to you. Right, number 18. This is a very, very serious subject. Drugs in Thailand. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I wouldn't take drugs if I went to Thailand. That's fine and that's good. But I recently had a young guy in my live stream and we were talking about Thailand, as we always do. And this young guy was talking about going to a full moon party, and in his own country he enjoys a joint, a spliff, whatever you want to call it, and he was kind of indicating that he would do that when he's in Thailand because he didn't think it was so serious. Believe me, it is very, very serious. If you get caught even with one joint, you will go to jail. The laws in Thailand are very, very strict on drugs. You'll end up in jail. It's happened to many, many people. It will happen again and again. So if you can't go to Thailand without touching drugs, my biggest advice I could give to you is don't go to Thailand because you will get caught. Something that's quite common, you can get set up as well. Another scenario, you'll be coming out of a very popular tourist area and somebody will stop you and offer you something that you can't get available where you are. Maybe you've never tried drugs before, you're on holiday, you've had a good time, you've had a few drinks, you think, oh, I'll try it, I'm in Thailand, what's it? I'll try it once, I'll never use it again. Some guy offers you white powder, you take it, you put it in your pocket to have it in your hotel just to experience it. And you get to the end of the street and 2 policemen turn up and they want to search you and they're going to find these drugs. Are they psychic? No, they're not psychic. The reason they know you've got drugs on you is because they're working as a team. The guy who's just sold you the drugs is an undercover police officer. The police at the end arrest you, take you to the police station, and it's all about money. And I'm talking big money, okay? If you get away with a big payment, then you're lucky, because if you end up going to a Thai jail, it's going to be the worst experience of your life. Believe me, I haven't been to a Thai jail, but I've spoken to several people who have been in jail and I've read books. As I said, if you can't go to Thailand without touching anything, don't go to Thailand. You'll come unstuck. Number 19, vaping. Believe it or not, vaping in Thailand is also illegal. I used to be a very heavy smoker. I gave up smoking by going onto a vape. It was very, very helpful. And I was using it in Thailand. I found out it was illegal. I didn't think it was a big deal, continued using it. And I was sitting on a beach in Hua Hin one evening, watching the sunset, and I had the vape with me. I wasn't using it, but a sign caught me, a huge sign, and it said penalty for vaping, 20,000 baht fine or 2 years in jail for vaping. That was it for me. I wasn't going to give anybody an excuse to get money out of me, and I certainly wasn't going to go to a Thai jail. I gave it up. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't smoke. I don't vape. You will have people come in and leave comments and say things like, well, I was at a nightclub in Carlson Road and all the younger people there were smoking vapes, or I was at a bar and everybody was vaping. It wasn't a problem. Yes, you will see people vaping. There will be people who don't have problems, but you are opening yourself up as a target to extracting money. So if you're sitting there vaping and your friend doesn't vape, and somebody comes along, a policeman comes along who wants to extract money from you, he's not going to pick on your friend. He's going to pick on you because you're vaping. It's just illegal, and there's nothing else to say on that one. Now, talking of the weather again, just to let you know, you should know by now, Thailand is a very hot and humid country. Generally, the temperature is 30 centigrade, 86 Fahrenheit. That can vary in the summer to the winter, but Thailand never gets completely cool. Thailand's got the reputation of being Bangkok has got the reputation of being the hottest city in the world because it doesn't cool down in the evening. A lot of cities around the world will be very, very hot, and in the evening they become quite pleasant. You can sit in an outside bar. It doesn't happen in Thailand. Yes, the sun goes in, you don't have that blazing sun on your face, but it's still very hot, very humid. And as I said earlier, the mosquitoes come out in force. So just be aware, if you're a person who can't stand extreme heats, then perhaps Thailand wouldn't be #1 on your agenda of countries to visit. Okay, let's talk about medicine. in Thailand. You might be on prescription drugs that you need to take with you. Myself, for instance, I take a reflux because I get acid. I take one of them a day. I take a statin to keep my cholesterol down. Now, the thing is, in Thailand, you can buy everything over the counter. Most things. There are one or two things you can't get, but most things you can buy over the country. If I visit for any length of time, I don't take stacks and stacks of medicine. What I'll do, I'll take my prescription medicine. What you need to do when you want to refill that prescription, you go to the pharmacy, take the empty box, the empty packaging, let them see it, because if you try to explain, sometimes with a language barrier, it can be difficult. I've never had a problem getting medicine without seeing a doctor. So if I've got a prescription that I need to refill, I'll show it to the pharmacist and they'll just give me a refill, as it were. It's not overly expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not overly expensive. And you can buy just about everything. But one thing I would advise you to take with you so you don't get caught short, and that is anti-diarrhea tablets, because of the changing climate and food. Most times for me, even after 30 years, I still get a very, let's try and keep it clean, I still get a very upset stomach the first couple of days. So you do need something to counter that. But if you're one of those people who want to cover every eventuality, and you want to stock up on a big load of medicine in case you get this one or that one, you don't need to do it. You can get everything in Thailand. It's widely available. And on the same subject, let's talk about the hospitals in Thailand. So the hospitals in Thailand are very, very good. They're second to none. They have a very good reputation. I've used hospitals in Thailand. They're great. But one thing you need to know about Thailand, they are a business, and you will need to pay for all treatment. What I would say to you, don't go to Thailand without any kind of coverage, any insurance, because when something happens and you get admitted to hospital, let's just give you a scenario. So you're riding a motorcycle, you fall off, you break your leg, you get taken to hospital, they reset your leg and they put the plaster on. Now, before they do that, they'll ask you for your card, your insurance card, and they'll check it's valid. And if it's not, they'll bring a card payment machine to you, and you will need to pay, and it's quite expensive. So as I said, the treatment is very, very good, but it is a business and everything is charged. So if you're in hospital, you'll be charged a daily rate for the room, you'll be charged for x-rays, you'll be charged for therapy, you'll be charged for doctors, consultations, you'll be charged for everything. And if you're in there for a couple of weeks or even a week and you've had quite a bit done, and believe me, they will try to do every test under the sun so that they can maximize their business, as it were. So make sure you've got insurance. Now, if you have something minor, it's not too bad. I got food poisoning a couple of years ago in Hue Hin. I ate something I shouldn't have ate. I went to a clinic. It was very, very good. I've seen a doctor who spoke very, very good English. They registered me. I'm now registered at that clinic. I hadn't been there before, just went into the clinic. They registered me. I took a seat for about 15 minutes. I seen an English speaking doctor, told him what was wrong with me, tested my blood pressure, everything. He gave me a course of antibiotics, and that cost me, with the consultation with the doctor, that cost me about 1,800 baht, which is probably about 35 to 45 pounds. So it was very, very reasonable. So you don't need to worry about those kinds of visits, just hospital visits. Right, let's change the subject and go to markets and buying. Now, you're in an exotic country. You've never been to Southeast Asia before. You're in Thailand. There's lots and lots of things to spend your money on. There's a lot of markets all over Thailand, and especially in Bangkok. You've got some huge markets like Jakajak. Pat Pong has got a very good market running down the center of the buildings. They're everywhere. Now, when you go to a market in Thailand, it is expected by the traders that you will barter with them. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about. In your own country, you might be a bit shy to try a bit of barter and haggling, but they expect it. And you need to be looking at about 25% of what they're asking for the price. So if they're asking for 1,000 baht, you'll offer them 200, 250. You'll get the dramatics, you'll get the acting, I don't make any money, and a very small profit, and you know, the normal sort of thing. You should be looking to get it for half of what they're asking. So if they're asking 1,000, offer them 250, accept 500. But even at 500, they'll tell you, you know, special customer, you come back again, yeah, don't tell anybody else I give you this price. It's all a script, it's all a show. Guys, if you're in Thailand, barter, markets and hawkers, small stores, you're expected to barter, and don't be embarrassed about it. If you haven't been to Thailand before, you're wondering about the power outlets. It's 220 volts. They're two pin plugs, so the American adapters will fit in, the American plugs will fit into them, and the European flat pin 2-pin plugs will fit into them. But do be aware, especially for the Americans who are on 110 volts, you will need to get some kind of an adapter. You don't want to blow everything when you get there. It is 220 volts. For us in the UK, we're very lucky because it's the same. It's 220 volts, so we just need plug extensions. Plug extensions, you can buy them in your own country. You can get them in the airport. You can get them in Thailand. They're not hard to come by. All right, now something I want to talk about now, quite a serious subject, and that is renting a motorcycle. Now, when you're on holiday, vacation in Thailand, especially in smaller towns, I'm not talking about Bangkok because the transportation is very good, but when you're in somewhere like Pattaya or Hua Hin, Rayong, there's plenty of places to rent motorcycles. The biggest motorcycle that you'll see rented out is the step-throughs, 125, 150cc, the Honda Click, the Honda Vibe. Great to get around, no gears. You just sit on it and turn the handle, the throttle, and away you go. You'll generally pay about 150 to 250 baht a day. The longer you take that bike for, the better the price. A couple of things I should tell you, several points actually on this. Firstly, when you rent a motorcycle, go around with your phone and video the whole thing. If there's any marks or damage, make sure it's documented, photographed. And then when you come back, if they say, well, there's a scratch on the mudguard, that wasn't there, you're going to have to pay to get that sprayed. You can show them the video and they haven't got a leg to stand on. The other thing I'd say on motorcycles, make sure you wear a crash helmet, one for your safety. But some people, a lot of people, especially younger guys, they tend to think when they go to Thailand, they don't need to wear a helmet. You'll see people flying around on bikes, especially in a place like Phuket. They're not wearing helmets. And what happens, you will get stopped and you'll pay an on-the-spot fine, but that's not as important as your safety. They do, especially in the evening, they have checkpoints all over the place. And if you get caught, drinking and driving in Thailand is no longer a backhander, a payment. For the majority of the time that I know of now, you will get arrested and you will go in front of the court. The fine might only be 5,000 baht. What's that? 125 pounds, or 150 US dollars. But the point is, if you get picked up on a Friday night, you're going to be in the cells until Monday morning, and that's not why you go to Thailand, is it? To be locked up in cells without air conditioning, a hole in the corner for a lavatory, and you might be in there with 50 other people. Okay, so if you rent a motorcycle, wear a helmet, don't drink and drive, and photograph the motorcycle before you go around there. And this isn't on the list, but the jet skis, the same sort of thing with that. If you do take a jet ski, because they're notorious for trying to extract money, scamming, if you want to go out on a jet ski, which is a lot of fun, just go round the jet ski with your camera, photograph it, any damage, so that way if you come back and they accuse you, again, you've got video proof that you didn't damage it. Okay. Okay, number 26, sunscreen and lotions. So these are quite expensive in Thailand. You can now get them. You couldn't get them so much in the old days. You can now. There's some 7-Eleven will sell all the sunscreens and deodorants, but as I said, they're rollerball deodorants, a sticky type I don't like. But you do have larger international stores now in the malls like Watson's. You've got Boots, and they sell everything, absolutely everything. Sunscreen is quite expensive in Thailand, as in deodorant. So I would definitely think about taking those two items from your own country. Something else you need to be aware of is a lot of the Thai products that are for your body, creams, lotions, they have a bleaching agent in them, because the Thais they look to whiten their skin. They like to lighten the skin, and all these products have bleaching products in, and it's not something personally I'd like to put on my skin. So that's something you need to think about as well when you head out to Thailand. Number 27, we're getting towards the end of the list now, is you don't want to overpack. You go into a hot country. The laundry is very, very cheap in Thailand. You can get a bag of laundry done out on the street. Very, very good, up to a good standard. It comes back all wrapped, ironed, folded in plastic bags. A bag of laundry you can get 200-300 baht. It's very cheap. Don't put it through your hotel, because all the hotel will do, especially the budget hotels, they'll take it to the same place you would have done. Okay, the 5-star hotels, they'll have their own laundries, but the smaller budget hotels, they'll have a laundry list in the room. You give it to the reception, they'll just take it outside and give it to the person you would have taken it to. So don't pack too much. It's hot. You don't need jackets and pullovers, jumpers. I wouldn't recommend wearing jeans in Thailand because it is hot. You just need, you know, t-shirts and loose fitting thin clothes, but not too much. Don't take too much. And of course, if you pack too much, then you might be overweight when you board the aircraft. And the last thing you want to do is lose some of your vacation money on paying for excess baggage. Okay, right. We're going to move on to another serious subject now. This is number 28, and this is regarding temples. Now, there are some fantastic temples to visit in Thailand. The Grand Palace in Bangkok is absolutely spectacular, but there's a couple of things I need to tell you about temples if you want to visit temples as a tourist. The first thing you've got to remember is, yes, it is a tourist attraction. It's a beautiful thing. The temples are beautiful. They're very, very interesting, but you need to remember they're there for a reason. They're there for worship. So they're holy sites, and you need to be totally respectful. One thing you need to remember, it's a hot country. You might not be wearing too much. You need to dress appropriately when you visit a temple. They will expect you to cover your shoulders, your chest, and your legs. They prefer long trousers or long skirts. If you're a lady and you're wearing a skirt to your knees, or you're a guy and you're wearing shorts, they will allow you in, but they prefer you to cover your legs. Now, if you arrive at a temple and you're dressed inappropriately, you're wearing a vest, for instance, they will refuse you entry, but they do provide some kind of attire, some clothing that they will provide for you so that you don't miss your trip. You can go and visit the temple rather. But what I would say, it's a tourist area. It's a tourist outlet, isn't it? Even though it's a place of worship, they're making money, and they're going to charge you for those garments, and it's not going to be cheap because it is a tourist attraction. So just try and keep in mind, if you're going to a temple, maybe go back to your hotel first, put on the appropriate attire, and then enjoy your visit, and you won't have any problems. I did say again that this list isn't going to be a scam list or 20 things you need to look out for. But obviously, like everywhere else in the world, there are some scams and cons that go on in Thailand that are unique to Thailand. Others are variations of scams from around the world. But what I would say, without me getting into great detail here, just go into YouTube and type in titles like 10 scams to look out for in Thailand, 10 things I should know, but that sort of thing. And you can do your own research. I don't need to get into it in detail here. All I'm saying today is be aware that these things do happen, and you should take care when you go out there. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of my list. We're on number 13 now, and this regards the safekeeping of your valuables when you're visiting Thailand. So most hotels now, you don't need to worry in the bigger hotels. They all have the built-in safes, but even the budget hotels now, most safes will have an in-room safe. Now, you will have people on other YouTube channels will say to you, I put my valuables in a safe, and the staff were in cahoots with each other, and I was robbed and they didn't do anything about it. I've never ever heard of a safe being robbed in a room ever in over 3 decades. So the safe in the room is safe, forgive the pun. If the hotel is a real bargain basement hotel that doesn't have safes in the room, generally speaking, they'll have a row of pigeonhole kind of safes in reception. And again, very, very safe. I've never had a problem losing anything from any of these. And if you're in a very, very, very cheap style, I can't think of a place to give you an example, but I have seen the manager have a locked drawer in his desk, so there's no safety boxes, but you give him his, I have had this happen to me once. I gave my passport and some money. They put it inside an envelope in front of me, closed it. I had to sign the where the seal was. He put it into his desk and he locked the desk. So, you know, it's quite safe. You've got the safes in the room, you've got the safe boxes behind reception, and on the rare occasions, even the manager's drawer. There's no excuse to leave money in a room ever laying about. And generally speaking, the maids and the people who come into your room, they're fairly honest. I mean, you don't normally have problems. Your suitcase is in the room when you leave the room. If you have a laptop or some electronics you don't want to leave out, because what could happen is the maid could leave the door open. She goes to another level to pick up some cleaning product. Your door's wide open. Somebody walks by, maybe a girl who's stayed with a guy for the night and with not the best reputation, walks past your room, sees a laptop sitting there. There's no one around. Takes 2 seconds to run in and pick it up. So what I would say, if you've got some valuables in your room, like a laptop or something like that, pop it in your suitcase, lock the suitcase, and when you get back to the room, if your suitcase is still there and locked, then you know everything in there is contained, because I don't think anybody's going to walk off with a suitcase, especially if they don't know what's in there. All right, so that's my 30 tips of things to do. I'd like to end the video with a bonus number, number 31, which is I've added just before I made the video. And my number 31 tip for you is have a good time when you go to Thailand. You'll have watched a lot of videos on YouTube before you go, a lot of videos on scams and don't do this and things to look out for, you know, and some of the points I've raised today. But at the end of the day, Thailand is a beautiful country. There's a lot to do. The people are very warm and welcoming. Why do you think it's called the Land of Smiles? Why do you think I've been going there for over 3 decades? The food is fantastic. There's a lot of shows. There's a lot of entertainment. There's a lot to do. You will have a good time. Go there with a positive attitude. Be polite, be respectful, and enjoy your time in Thailand. And I'm sure if you haven't been before, you'll visit once, you'll want to go back again and again. Okay, thanks for watching this video today, and I'll catch up with everybody soon.